is 6:30, so we can open the meeting. And first off, we're going to welcome our new member, Maggie Gerhard. Hi, Maggie. So do we want to do brief introductions then?
Yes, I think that would be great if we can say name, and if you have a certain position, representation, how long on the board. Well, Mandy, it seemed like it worked really well when I think you called on people.
I can
recently.
Certainly do that.
Yeah.
Let's start with Mark.
Oh. Except I think Mark is just gonna. He's in the background just helping with IT. Yeah, we'll just let him do his other things.
Okay, I know Melanie's probably doesn't want to talk. So how about Crystal then?
Hi, Crystal Garcia. I apologize, my video is not working at the moment, but I am an adult services librarian too, the city of Sherwood, and I've worked here for, I believe, almost 15 years.
Fantastic. Thanks, Crystal. And let's go to Lily.
Thanks, Randy.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm the high school representative.
Thanks, Lily. And how long have you been on the board?
I think like a year now.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's go to Counselor Browse.
Hello, we met the other day when we did the interview. I'm Counselor Browse, the council liaison to the Library Advisory Board.
Great. And how about Fritz?
Hi, Maggie, welcome to the board. My name is Fritz Kalashevsky. I've been on the board for a year now, and I am the rural representative. I live outside of Sherwood, about 3.5 miles west of 99.
Great, thanks, Fritz. And we'll move over to Stephen now.
Hi, Maggie. Welcome. Steve Remsen, Sherwood residents, have 2 kids that did use the library a lot, hoping to get back again soon.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. And I think that pretty much does it for everybody that wants to chat. Oh, and Adrian, we can always introduce Adrian.
Thank you.
She wildly
Adrian
waves in the
Doman-Calkins. Thank you. I'm Adrian Doman-Calkins, library manager. Welcome to your first meeting, Maggie.
Thanks, Adrian. And last and least, I am Randy Mifflin, and I am the vice chair on the advisory board. And I've been here for 4 years, 5 years, Adrian? I can't remember. Seems like a blink.
I think at least 5 because you're on your second term.
There you go.
So, yeah.
I'm an old timer. All right. So welcome, Maggie. And moving right along. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
None that I have.
Fantastic. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting. And I need a motion to approve the November meeting minutes.
I
Motion
move
to approve. Second.
Fantastic.
We're
All in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? And all those abstaining? Looks like they pass. And that puts us right on time, even a little early for Adrian with the WCCLS Intergovernmental Agreement updates.
Excellent. Thank you. So we had been talking the last few sessions about the cooperative agreement process that's been going on with WCCLS, the merged groups of the WCCLS policy group, which I'm on, and the WCCLS executive board, which is in our case our city manager representation, or Kristen Schweitzer, director of community services, my supervisor. And so those meetings have been going on. We're getting closer to final products for the intergovernmental agreements, or IGAs. The most recent update hasn't gone on the public website yet, but it should be going up probably later this week, maybe even tomorrow. And that is that we have a draft the part of the intergovernmental agreements that covers the network agreement between WCCLS and the member libraries, and that includes the catalog and different IT support. Almost all the libraries, not Sherwood, but almost all the libraries get their Wi-Fi through WCCLS. So there is a part that's not applicable for us because we have Sherwood broadband. But things like our integrated library system, which is what we use for library accounts, and all of the catalog on the back end and the public website, all of that is included in that, as well as other electronic resources and some privacy information and so on. And then there's also a section about services, what WCCLS promises to do and what member libraries promise to do. So I do have a document I can show. You may want to not look at it. It's one of those where it's all marked up. It's got all the tracked changes on. There's a lot of red. It's a lot of strikeout. I think I'll keep my screen share off for the parts that are the most difficult to read, but there's some nice lists I'd like to share with you so that you're familiar with what is going to be discussed at the next CAP meeting. And so as a reminder, if you want to see, I will show you where this all lives. I'm going to share my screen here. And Maggie, I just showed you some of this. So you'll be like, I know all about this already. So if, do you see the WCCLS website? Yeah, okay, good. So wccls.org, and then you can, if you go there and go to the bottom of the screen to About, and then click on Governance, this is where you get to. And then view the public CAP documents. So this is the one where I said it's not posted to the public yet, but if you wanted to come here, hopefully in about a week, and go to meeting agendas and minutes, and you'll find the agenda packet for the meeting that's, I think it's January 30th, I think. And that will have that. I will open this most recent one that's here, the December one. We didn't have a meeting in December, but in November, we did look at this a bit. So this gets updated every time there's a meeting, and it's been largely unchanged recently as a reminder of where we're at in the process. So we had the last CAP meeting, December 15th, we reviewed the library and WCCL service obligations. That's the part of they say they'll do this, we say we'll do that. And then this part, which I think I spoke about briefly actually when we were talking about strategic focus areas last time with language support. So Title VI Civil Rights Act compliance, there's going to be funding coming from WCCLS to member libraries because as Washington County receives some federal funds, we need to be in better compliance about this part of the Civil Rights Act compliance about offering translation and different language support. And since WCCLS is a department of the county and we're getting funding from them, then that puts us in that category as well. So we had that discussion. Out of that, there have been a number of drafts, and then the group that I'm in, policy group, we did a very thorough review of the draft IGAs as well just last week. So January 26th, I was wrong when I said the 30th. January 26th, our next meeting, we'll review and discuss the draft IGAs for the governance, the IT, and termination is just because these are legal agreements. If a library were to say we're going to leave the cooperative, which we don't, have any inkling of any member library leaving, but it just needs to be in there of how to do it if someone needed to. And so meanwhile, separate from this timeline, I'm preparing it'll probably be like a one-page front and back summary for city council members. And I'll first be reviewing that with Kristen and with the city manager, Keith Campbell, and then Councilor Brous. I'm not quite sure yet what that's going to look like, if it will look like small meetings or a work session. But I think it will start off probably as an email to councilors like, as a reminder, this has been going on, here's where we're at. So council will have that opportunity to be brought up to speed as well. And then February 22nd, the Board of Commissioners for the county has a work session where they review the IGAs. And this says end funding because, as those of you who aren't having your first meeting tonight may recall the funding distribution was already tentatively approved, earlier in this process, so that we have our numbers already. It won't be formally approved until it's gone through this whole process, but we already have numbers to work with, which is a 3% increase over last fiscal year, and then a 3% increase for the remaining fiscal years of the 4 years left in the levy cycle. So that's as expected. It will be a little lean, but again, that was expected because this levy was a renewal, not an increase. Okay, so going back, so then the very next day after Board of Commissioners has that work session where they get to review and share their thoughts. Then the 23rd of February, we have another CAP meeting, talk about whatever it is the Board of Commissioners said. There may be some more wordsmithing after that. And then March 15th, we're already on a Board of Commissioners agenda for them to authorize these IGAs. And so then what happens is we actually, sometime after that, we get the IGAs, and they are, they go to City Council for final approval for the City Manager to sign. And that should all be done in time for the next fiscal year. So July, we would get money that's allocated through this process and be following the new agreements. Any questions about the timeline? Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna grab this document. I think if I just move this over to my screen, do you see that I changed what's on the screen? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, good. So this is the draft IGA. Actually, let me pause this. I'm going to stop presenting that for a second so I can just speak and it's not too distracting. So the IGAs previously, in the last, like, say, 10, 15 years, had kind of grown organically, where there was an IGA and there was a network agreement and there was a governance and then there was amendment and there was another amendment and there was a third amendment. So we had these kind of 5 big sections, and some things were written in a way to be accurate for a number of different types of libraries that used to be part of the cooperative. These days, we're all public libraries, but not so long ago, we had a specialty library from the Tuolumne Health, what were they called, the hospital. And then we also had the Oregon College of Art and Craft Library. At different points, there was if you go way back in time, there were school libraries before they got their own automated systems. Some of the elementary schools and so on, and high schools in the county were also part of the cooperative. And so there were these parts of the IGAs that were kind of written in this way that was speaking to all those types of libraries. And this time they wanted to take the IGAs, simplify them into one document with some exhibits, and take out the language that really didn't apply to anybody but public libraries, and just update things and have things be more clear. And I'm really excited about them. I think they're much more comprehensive and clear documents. So that's part of why there's so many strikeouts in these documents. Okay, so I will share again. 1 second here. Okay, do you see that again? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, good. So this, again, you're seeing something that's definitely a draft. There's going to be a whereas section that's not in here yet that has to go to legal counsel from the county, and there's a lot of kind of formal speak like you might hear in any other government agreement, like whereas this entity is that and this entity is that, the other, and so on. So that's coming. That's what that is. But we've got some definitions is what we're starting with. So minimum operating requirements. This wasn't in here as such previously, and really it's a very low bar. all the member libraries in the county are far above this minimum operating requirement. This is really speaking to requirements that are at the state level. They're legal definitions of what a public library is, and to be eligible for state level funds for things like summer reading. And we need to have a minimum number of open hours a week and minimum amount of access and expertise and so on. So nothing to worry about here. Sometimes people see that and they go, wait, do we need to worry? No. And then, so you'll see there's the services provided and deliverables. There's going to be Exhibit A, which is the network agreement, and then B, which is library services, and C is funding allocations. And so then in the network part, there's a lot of strikeout and editing because there was so much that was out of date. Contractors, that term is the same thing as member libraries. So it's just that we have a contract with WCCLS. It used to be that some of these other specialty libraries only contracted for network, but not all the other services. And so that's why it was written this other way. And then there's some definitions about things like directory services is really the kind of the behind the scenes management of data and security. And maintenance is both cloud and physical hardware. And then there's a section that's about personal information, security information. So this list is a legal list of what's considered personal information. The library does not, none of the libraries are collecting this information intentionally about, social security numbers or passport numbers or financial accounts, anything like that. But it needs to be in here because it's part of the legal definition. And so an example of how this might come into play, we had something once where if someone accidentally put something on a public computer and put something in the recycle bin and it didn't clear, it's supposed to clear, but if there was a technical difficulty and it didn't clear and we found it and somebody else had access to that, well, then we need to refer and say, well, what was that? What's the nature of it? What do we have to do legally because of the personal information? I'm probably getting into the weeds too much, but I don't want you to think that we're all of a sudden going to start collecting passport numbers or social security numbers. And then there's more about security information. There's information here about ownership of the records. And so that has to do with if a member library were to leave, do they get access to the records for the books? They can get, copies of their book records, like the bibliographic records for placing holds on things and all the title, author information, but they don't get the patron information. Scrolling, and then more about the network, about how each member library has to really make sure that everything is secure and that we take care of the hardware and that we understand the scope of the services that WCCLS provides. You're not expected to remember this or memorize it or anything. I just want you to be aware. So if someone says, well, I heard there's a new IGA about the network, you kind of know what types of things are included in that. There's some about data recovery, so that WCCLS is backing up the data. And duties and responsibilities. So this is still related to the network. That they're going to be purchasing the licenses for the software that we use for library systems, maintaining all of that, making sure it's accurate. Scroll. They also provide and maintain the library security gates that we all have. And then there's some duties and responsibilities that we have about making sure that we take good care. This largely applies to the Wi-Fi part, but that if there's hardware on site here at our library, that we would take good care of that. For us, we're using Sherwood broadband, and the city of Sherwood purchases our computers, even though the public computers are actually on the WCCLS network. I'm going to scroll through all of that. Most of that doesn't apply for us. Okay, I think, and then there's some about like, default, this is legal things. If we were to not do right, that we're going to be in default of the contract, which I'm not worried about that. Okay, and so that's the part about network, and then we're on to services. That's my super fast tour. Did anybody have a question about network agreement stuff? No? Okay. All right, so then Exhibit B, library services. This has been edited substantially, but there shouldn't be any surprises here. WCCLS is not going to do less than they were before. It's really just updating things. And so they, are providing and maintaining the bibliographic records in our catalog, maintaining the quality of the catalog. There's some supplies that we need for like our barcodes on the books and that kind of thing, the library cards, so that everything looks the same and works the same across the county that WCCLS provides. They maintain the WCCLS.org website and the public interfaces with the events calendar. There's the courier system with pickup and delivery of materials all across the county. The system-wide digital collections, so for those of you using Libby or Overdrive, there's that. There's also a number of other electronic resources that WCCLS is providing. There's Interlibrary Loan, so if you wanted an item that's not in the county, we have about 1.6 million items, but let's say you need something that's really specific and we need to get it from a university library or a public library out of state. That's through Interlibrary Loan. And that's coordinated by the county. And then the county does what we call outreach, and this was rewritten a little bit to be more up to date with what the needs are right now. And so, but still to be broad enough that as the needs might evolve over the next 4 years, it's still a good fit. So engagement with and/or services for underserved populations in Washington County, which can include, but is not limited to, incarcerated persons. And that's there's a jail library here in the county that WCCLS supports with kind of like placing holds, but it's a little bit different. And then also to immigrants and refugees, those experiencing houselessness, those whose first language is not English, people with disabilities, young children, etc. And some of this with the people with disabilities that crosses over with this next item, the library mail service program, where someone's unable to visit a library, usually due to some kind of mobility issue or a different type of disability, then they can sign up to have their books mailed to them. And then, of course, there's strategic planning that happens at the county level. There's also different materials that support programming, such as summer reading and adult summer reading. There's central storage. There's different committees and work groups and subject matter expert groups and so on that are all coordinated at the county level for collaboration across the county. And then different communication campaigns depending on what's going on. Reciprocal borrowing in the metropolitan area. So it's called the mix agreement. So if you live in Washington County, you can also get a card at Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and the Fort Vancouver Regional Library System up in Vancouver, Washington, or vice versa if you're a member at any of those. There's also the Oregon Library Passport Program. So if someone lives not in the metro area, but they can probably get a limited library card, I believe it's just for 5 checkouts. And let's see, coordination of all of that, planning for long-term growth and development, and then other services to address strategic goals as agreed upon by the parties. So that was a long list of what WCCLS agrees to provide. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, and then for the contractors, so that's us as member libraries. Let me scroll up here. here. We agree to ensure the same level of access to materials, resources, and services for all qualified borrowers. So the idea there is, like, say someone gets a library card at another library. Let's say they go to North Plains, they get their library card, but they visit a number of different libraries. They should be treated just as well at all those libraries, like they're just as much of a library patron as if they were at their home library in North Plains. We will not charge qualified borrowers a fee for checkout or renewal of library materials. And all fees and policies will be applied uniformly to all qualified borrowers. Sometimes there are special service fees. Those happen rarely, but that might be like for if someone lived out of the area and wanted a full level library card and they want to pay for that, or sometimes there's other things like if they lose an item, that kind of thing. And let's see, that will all agree to abide by the shared policies and procedures as agreed upon by the WCCLS policy group. We'll take full responsibility for, this really means like keeping the catalog accurate, so that when we buy materials and we make sure that they're in the catalog, and we do that in a way that's going to be accurate and helpful. And then that we will meet all those minimum operating requirements from the state. We'll only distribute library cards that WCCLS provides. We're not going to come up with a Sherwood brand library card and try and look like we're different somehow. And then we'll clearly identify that we're a member library, and we already do a really good job of this. But in our public communications, we'll often have both our logos, the WCCLS logo and the Sherwood logo. And we'll clearly credit WCCLS when promoting resources and services that they provide using their branding and language. And I think we do a good job of that too, in my opinion. Here comes Jane. Hi, Jane. Glad you can make it.
Yes.
We're just we're at the final little bit of I'm sharing a draft of the intergovernmental agreement. We're on the last section now, or I think almost the last section, which is compliance. Yeah, you're welcome. So compliance of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. We've talked about this at the last meeting to a degree. The part that we'll be starting with is that member libraries will be posting a notice that free language assistance is available, and that will be available through WCCLS. We'll use document translation and/or interpretation services upon request of the user. We'll ensure that library card applications are available in target languages. And we'll post notice and make interpretation services available for any public meeting. So that would include this. If someone says, I really need this translated into Mandarin, and as long as we get enough notice, then we would request a translator to be present. And WCCLS will provide the signage and the services and the translations. And then also some things with notices, like if someone does owe for a lost item, that kind of thing, or the online payment interface that lives on WCCLS.org, that they would do that as well. And that's that part. Then there's the funding. I think we've talked mostly about this already. I wasn't going to read through that. Let me just scroll really quickly. Excuse me, clicking in my microphone. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing all that. It gets into a lot of cross out. So, any questions about the draft IGA? Or comments? Is it useful? Yeah, good. Okay. Alrighty. Well, thank you. That was my update about that.
Thanks, Adrian. And if we have no further questions about the WCCLS IGA, we can move right along to library updates.
Okay. Good. Thank you. So I've got some updates about the current and upcoming events. I wanted to talk a little bit about our COVID responses, the updated strategic or the updates on our strategic focusing and the EDGE assessment. So for current and upcoming events, I wanted to let you know the reading programs are going on. We've got the kids reading program. Winter reading is the one that's in partnership with the schools here in Sherwood, and that goes through the end of the month. And the kiddos can sign up. They have a little reading log, and they track their reading, can turn that in to get some different prizes. And then the adult winter reading program actually goes through February, and that has 3 different reading challenges. And then I wanted to mention we have our 3D printing classes. It's a 2-parter. It's going to happen on Zoom. It's later this month. Adam Lukowski is teaching that with a community partner who's an expert in 3D design, and it's already full, so we're excited about that. We have done 3D printing classes before, but not during the pandemic. We did them when a couple times when our 3D printer was brand new, right before the pandemic. This time we're going to do a little bit differently, where participants at the second session, or at the end of the second session, I believe, can submit their design electronically, and then we'll print it for them and they can come pick it up. And that's going to help us kind of test out a public printing procedure. That our intention all along was to be able to 3D print items to an extent, like with some limitations for size and time of printing, for those people who want to maybe prototype something but don't have access to a 3D printer. So excited about that. We were going to bring back our computer classes in person in February. We've decided to put that on hold because of the major spike in cases. We do have currently out a survey asking our regular program participants about their preferences for when we are able to come back in person, which programs are kind of highest priority for bringing back. That's on our website at sherwoodoregon.gov/library. We've got 2 estate planning sessions that are happening on Zoom. Teen Lab, which is Teen Library Advisory Board, has been meeting. We're not promoting it this way, but they have been meeting in person now for about a month. And that's really more of a volunteer club. We have had our volunteers back in person, and the teens were really, suffering from lack of social and in-person outlets. And we felt like that really fit with our strategic focus areas to serve the people that need things most, especially as we read statistics about teens and mental health and how hard it's been during the pandemic. I wanted to let you know that we have a partnership brewing that hopefully will be in May. We're doing kind of an adulting series about different life skills, and there's going to be one of the sessions is on car maintenance, and it's going to be in partnership with Les Schwab. And we reached out to them, and they're like, "Hey, we've been wanting to do something like this for a long time." So that'll be a really unique partnership for both of us. And then I wanted to mention March 8th, we have an Oregon Humanities Conversation Project, which actually Crystal facilitates or coordinates that, and it's called Talking About Dying. That is being cross-promoted with the Senior Center here in Sherwood. So that's it for events I wanted to mention. I did want to share about COVID responses. So we have we've been getting questions about, are you hearing murmurs of closing up again or just doing curbside again? And the answer is no. At this point, the plan is to stay open as much as we can. We're very grateful with the, access to vaccinations and boosters, and we've been able to socially distance really well here from each other on staff. Knock on wood, things have been going well. Of course, we're concerned about Omicron, and it is affecting us, but we've been able to stay pretty stable. So we had one day last week where we had to close early. Instead of closing at 8, we closed at 5. There may be days in the future, where we have to do something like that, but we're going to just treat it as kind of case by case, day by day. If we can't get enough coverage to stay open our regular hours. And we do have on-call staff. We do have our staff is largely cross-trained, where people can really cover for each other well. It gives us a lot of flexibility, but we're still a small staff, and so that was an option we had to take. And then that brings me to strategic focusing updates. Does anybody have any questions before I switch over? No? Okay. I feel like it's the Adrian show again, like I do. Last time we did our SWOT analysis, and there was so much talking other than me. It's nice. Let's see here. I'm just going to share my screen again. Do you see the strategic focusing areas there? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Super. Thanks for the thumbs up, Lily. That's nice. Easy to see. All right. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So I haven't updated this document since mid-November. We thought back then that maybe we would be restoring in-person services more. Instead, that piece has largely been on hold as Delta and Omicron really took over. But it's still important. It's still on our list. It did help us make that decision about Teen Lab. And we still want to bring the computer classes back first as the next rung. I don't know for sure when that will be. No new updates under technology. I wanted to talk a little bit about these two last categories. So for equity, we don't have any of these checked off the list. Crystal's been helping research some of the training opportunities, and so I'm really excited about that. This third one down, the deeper EDI training for staff, such as bystander training and research justice, we're finding that there's a few options that are local, and I don't know prices yet or timelines or how soon we can do it. I'm hoping we can have some trainings this fiscal year for staff, and I think that will really help us. Oh, I see, Jane, I see your hand up. 1 second here. I think the training will really help frame some of these other conversations, and then we can start to work on other pieces more. Yes, Jane.
It's easy. I know the word bystander, but tell me in the library world, what are we talking about? Somebody doing something on the sidewalk?
No, well, I mean, it could be, but let's say we're at work. Yeah. So for example, let's say I mean, this could happen anywhere. So I think bystander training, sort of like CPR training, like we might take a CPR training, class for work to be able to help if somebody has an incident at work. But really now I have those skills to use anywhere. So I think it's kind of like that category. But so for a library example, let's say I'm at work and I see something happening where someone's being like physically violent and for example, using race and as like a catalyst for a hate crime or something, and it's happening right in front of my eyes, and what can I do? And so depending on what's happening, it might be just verbal, it might be physical and verbal, it might, I mean, I don't know, it could be all those things. And I mean, I think a lot of us probably have read the news and seen or heard descriptions about things happening on buses and trains, and what's a safe way to intervene and help someone? Or it could be something less extreme, like let's say we see something that might be considered less dangerous but still really offensive and could lead to something, and we want to do right by the person who's being targeted. And maybe it's really separate from enforcing the behavior policy too. So that's kind of it. I mean, I haven't done the training yet, so I don't know all the tools yet, of what to learn, but I know that it will be helpful. And then it will really help propel us forward too, I believe, on not just having ideals of equity, but, how to act on those and protect everybody if something were to happen.
I'm glad to hear it, because I was in a public setting and there was a terrible racist outburst and I needed to take action because I'm not going to ignore it. And it was in Sherwood. And I think it's important to acknowledge when people are suffering. Maybe somebody got some really bad news and they're crying. It's an emotional response. So I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. So, and I do want to update the behavior policy and the collection development policies. I don't have drafts prepared quite yet, but I'm hoping in the next month or so to dig into that. And then in the next column, this green strategic planning community engagement column, this group actually spoke a lot about needing to analyze the census data more thoroughly and other community data. I have a meeting actually tomorrow with the planning manager for the city, Erica. Gosh, I'm trying to remember Erica. Is it Palmer? I think her last name is. Which I'm really excited about. So Erica has been coordinating the comprehensive planning for the city and the a lot of public engagement about what would be best for Sherwood, and also some ideas about what if Sherwood did expand on Sherwood West and what would that look like and what does the community need. And so I know she has her hands on a lot of data and a lot of community input, and I wanted to start with a conversation with her, like, you know, what does she have that she thinks would be most relevant for library and kind of point me in the right direction. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, you know, if a lot of custom interpretations about Sherwood data already are available. So I will share what I find out about that. And let's see. And then I think that's it. I think that's where we're at. We haven't done any of the rest yet. The last update was about the EDGE assessment. So some of you may recall EDGE assessment is a national tool for public libraries to measure how effective we are serving the public for their technology needs, and you know, how easy is it to access technology, and are the full suite of modern tools available for people to conduct their lives, you know, and so you get a score from that. And so many of you who've been on the board for longer have seen me bring a report in and say, here's what our score is, you know, we're doing really good. And we've been able to edge our score up, and we've actually been an EDGE spotlight library for national. This is under the umbrella of the Urban Library Council, which is national. So we're in a new cohort at the state level, and that's kicking off this month. We have a number of different classes that we take for this. So we'll be doing an EDGE assessment. We'll get a score. Oh, excuse me, I meant to close that. We'll get a score for where we are right now. We know that our score dropped because we had to reduce a lot of our services, but we're excited to figure out a plan for what to do. And when I say we, this is largely Adam Lukowski and I do this together, and he's kind of leading on the actual assessment part. It used to be that I did most of it, and so I'm kind of more in the consultant role now. And Jane, I'm seeing your emails. I'm sorry I didn't see those at the time, but I'm glad you made it in.
Okay. I didn't give up. I didn't give up. I knew you were having an important meeting.
Yeah. It was weird. Normally it pops right up on the screen, so I saw one of them. I wonder if you were waiting very long.
Okay. I'm tough.
Okay. Well, I was popping over to my email to just say a little tiny bit more about EDGE, but the focus of the one we're doing this way is a new course series that they're doing, and it's about digital equity and inclusion. And so I'm excited about that too. We'll have a lot about assessing community needs and helping us with an action plan. I think it will feed well into our strategic planning process. So that is that for those updates. I'll get a quick sip of water before I'm on my next topic.
Right, thanks, Adrian. And if we don't have any questions about library updates, we can move right along to the management report.
Okay, thank you. So I did put in on the City of Sherwood website where you find our minutes. I did drop a couple documents there earlier today. So if you want to, you can view those later. Let me just make sure I get the right thing up here on the screen. A second. Alrighty, do you see the City of Sherwood website there? Alrighty. So, so our January one, you can just click on packets here, but I like to click view details so I can see more of what it is. Supporting documents, so I have some charts and some data here. I'll start with the charts, they're prettier. So instead of presenting or sharing monthly data or just a couple months since we missed December, I realized that, hey, we're perfectly at half a year. Let's kind of look and see what the trends are. So this is total checkouts. The blue line is the current fiscal year. The dotted green line is last fiscal year. So for example, July, this fiscal year compared to July last fiscal year. So here we are, end of December, we had surpassed, I said the wrong thing. I'm so used to doing the previous fiscal year. I actually am comparing to the fiscal year 2018 to 2019 because that's the full fiscal year that is not affected by the pandemic. So it gives us an idea of like, what were we doing before COVID? So we're actually, when you count total checkouts, so that includes physical and digital materials, we've surpassed our pre-pandemic amounts. We're about, I think it's 8% this month, and it's been like 6 and 5% the last few months here. So that feels really good. And then if I go down, so if we just talk about physical checkouts, physical checkouts are lower than pre-pandemic, but the gap has definitely closed. We're just a few percentages under that. And I'll show you the exact numbers here in a little bit too. And then where we're making up the difference, now the scale here is really different. Actually, I'm going to go back up. So the scale up here, this green line is starting at about 30,000 checkouts, right? And over here towards the end, December is always a quieter month since people are focused on other things. It's about 23,500 items. And then the scale for digital checkouts, we're looking at like around 8,000 items. So this fiscal year, the blue line has been way above. We used to pre-pandemic have around 4,000 digital checkouts, and it stayed pretty consistent. I was wondering when we saw this happen August, September, of like, is the trajectory going to go back down and stay maybe just a little bit higher because so many people switched over to using ebooks who never had before, but it's really plateaued. And so I think that will be an interesting thing to watch as the pandemic one day, finishes, and, will we have just as many people checking out digital books? And then this is computer use. This really matches what we're seeing with the door counts too. So door count is about half of what it was pre-pandemic. It was at one point about a quarter. So we're getting more people, but it's still not as busy. So this is around, 400 uses, 400 to 500 uses per month nowadays. And then visits are what we call door counts. So again, we're at about 10,000, and it used to be around 20,000 or a little higher. I think that's my last one. Yeah. So any questions about the charts? Okay, and then I'll show you. Oh,
Quick
yes.
question, Adrian. Is that typical of the other libraries? Would you say
like all of it? You mean
say like
kind of the
visits.
trends?
Well, like the trend, like the visits. Are there kind of in most of the other libraries in the system having half the visitors? Like
I don't know because we don't share that because. I mean, I could go get it. It should be public information.
No, that's okay.
But I don't. Yeah.
Get a sense of it.
I think we're pretty average.
Okay.
Nobody's like as busy as they used to be.
Okay.
Everybody is for the most part, having all their programs virtually still. So we used to get a lot of traffic from our story time days with all those little kiddos coming in and the different programs, and those are all happening virtually. There's a couple libraries that have had a few programs in person. Like Banks has, I think it might be once a week they have a story time in person. Another library I think has, maybe 2 libraries have a teen program that is going I think maybe once or twice a month, but it's really few and far between. So that makes me think I think the door count is probably pretty similar. West Slope Library did just change to curbside only. They're the ones that are managed by the cooperative, by WCCLS, and they really needed to allocate staff. Like they have it's a very small library, a very small number of staff, and they needed to pick something really consistent that they could meet the expectation and not be changing, every week or something. So that's new. Let's see. Let me get the other stats here. Let's see. Actually, instead of me doing it that way, that was my. One second. I'm going to stop presenting and get this queued up. So I have my spreadsheet that I did a screen, like I set up as a PDF. And I'll just get that a little bigger first. I think this part is not going to take the whole amount of time, by the way. Maybe we'll get done early. So, okay, do you see a bunch of green? Yep. Okay. All right, so these are the same numbers I used for some of those charts. Total checkouts, so you can see like the, here we go, change from pre-pandemic, we're 9% over our pre-pandemic amount for total checkouts. This number just over the last 6 months has gone from -12%, then -2, then 5, 6, 6, 9. So I feel hopeful that, like this is through Delta and Omicron, people are still checking out a lot of stuff. So I think that's a good solid trend. And then physical checkouts started off as in July as 26% below pre-pandemic, and now we're only 4% below pre-pandemic. So again, that feels like a good solid trend. Digital checkouts we talked about. Digital checkouts encompass, here we go, the percent of total checkouts is about 25%. And then I'm going to go down. This is the items we added to the collection. Our collection right now is 54,000 items. I don't have all of my stats for volunteers, so I'll get those before we do a formal stats report for the year. Computer use we talked about, so that's at about a little more than or a little less than half. And the visits, so no, we're having a problem with our security gates, which also count people going in and out. November is an estimate entirely. October and December, I had to estimate based on what numbers I did have. So, take it with a grain of salt, but we're approximately half of what our door counts were pre-pandemic. And then programs, I'm missing some stats for November, December, but we're still doing just a fraction of the programs we used to do. Meaningful programs, mostly over Zoom. They're happening for all ages, and we'll see as things open back up, we'll see that go up. Registered patrons, we're up to over 14,000 patrons. We had that spike in October with 150 library card registrations, and then now it's down again. So I'm not quite sure what to expect for the rest of the year. It used to be pre-pandemic around 100 every month. And then reference and readers advisory, our statistics for that, we had 135 and 327 the last 2 months. So that's going up as well. I think that's the end of that. Yeah. Oh, actually, Councilor Browse, I'm seeing you nod. I'm like, the numbers that you always like to say, and I think this is off screen here, but this is, if you add up all of these values of checkouts for the whole half year so far, it's a little over $4 million for the value. Like if people had to buy those books, right? Yeah, thank you for the clapping. And our budget is about 1.3 million. So in half a year, we've almost, quadrupled that value, I should say, return on investment. Any questions about our statistics or library use? Comments?
Good report.
Nope.
Thank you. I think
Nope.
very
You're welcome.
comprehensive.
Thanks. I figured, every 6 months it's nice to kind of dive in a bit deeper.
Okay, we can move right along to Councilor Browse's updates.
There, something. So I just want to make sure I got that right, Adrian. You're saying that in materials there would be $4 million worth if it was all put together.
Yeah, so value of checkouts is the actual, hold on, I'm in my spreadsheet now. The actual value is $4,097,495. So
wow, that is so
4.1 million. Yeah. Yeah, so that's just of the checkouts, but that would include the digital checkouts and the physical checkouts.
All right, well, thank you. Yeah, those are the kind of fun things that are nice to share at council meetings. I don't have a lot to share tonight as far as what's going on in council, but a few things that I have is that we are working with the senior center. So the senior advisory committee is working on becoming an age-friendly city. So we had a work session with council a few weeks ago, and it sounds like we're on board with moving forward with that project, which will really be helpful for the seniors in our community. So I'm very excited about that. There will be a work session coming up in the next couple weeks or the next couple council meetings regarding the Pedestrian Bridge, which I think most of you should be aware of. There's a bridge that will be going in over by the YMCA that will connect both sides of 99 together and make it safer for our kids to go back and forth to school. We have actually back in October, so when I was out of town, there was a work session about chickens, an ongoing issue about whether or not there should be chickens within the city limits. And there's an ordinance coming before council in, I think it's in two council meetings for us to consider adopting. I think you've probably all seen all the different activities going around in the community between 12 to Sherwood Road and Roy Rogers and the other construction. You'll start seeing probably this summer some work going on in the Robin Hood Theater parking lot. So that's going to become more of a community park, not with toys and such, but more of a friendly place to be in the downtown corridor. And the last announcement that I have is if you are aware of businesses or leaders in the community that have been doing great things in the last year or so, we're accepting nominations for various awards at the Chamber of Commerce. So please get your nominations in for our award dinner on February 24th, because this is an opportunity to celebrate the great things that have been going on in our community amidst all the pandemic. So we're going to try to make this a year of celebration. And that's all I have, unless you have questions for me. Jane?
Yes, I have a general question, and you probably talked about it because I got there late. I got to the meeting late. Did you talk about the lantern celebration that we're having at the Sherwood Center for the Arts, and the library's helping, and everybody's helping with lanterns on January 30th from 3 to 6?
I didn't, and it didn't come up. But I'll say the library is going to be showcasing an exhibit of lanterns in our display case that's at the Pine Street entrance. So that will go up, I think, January 28th. I think it's going to go up in time for February for the Lunar New Year.
Yes, it's important to acknowledge other cultures' holidays. And the Lantern Festival, the Lunar New Year, is coming up, and our city is part of it. And I'm very happy about this. Very happy. It's exciting, it's creative, it's beautiful. And people will come to the library to see your display and check out all the books that they can on the topic so they understand. I've never forgotten, Adrian, when you had some kind of dancing lion in the library. I mean, this is years ago, and my granddaughter was terrified. But that's not the point. The point is, it was a cultural event, and it was so cool. Children and just we'll come back to those days, but we're still celebrating in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jane. It's a feeding of the greens. Is it Crystal coordinates that program? Crystal, is it called Feeding of the Greens? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, so you're thinking of the thing that they do at the end with the lettuce, that blessing. Yeah, I believe it's Choi Chan or something in Chinese, but yeah, it's Feeding of the Greens.
Yes.
They do the Chinese lion dance where they do the dance and the different moves, and then at the end they have the stick with the cabbage or the lettuce, and it eats it, and there's a whole story that goes with it. We've had that here. Gosh, Crystal, how many times has it been? Has it been 4 now?
Oh,
maybe 4 or 5.
4 or 5, and of course it's been on hold, but we do want to bring it back, and it's been sponsored by the Stanleys, Diane and Stan Stanley, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Yeah. But we got lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have any other business or public comments tonight?
I did not receive any public comment.
Jane, was your hand up? Or is that an old hand? You're muted, Jane.
Let me take that old hand down.
Excellent. Well, then we have finished in record time tonight. So this is definitely a first, I think.
I feel like I should apologize. I could have had a whole policy review or something if I had had time to make one.
Next month you'll just talk slower. So.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. It is 7:32, and we will adjourn early. So everybody have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.